Those are the headlines and our top focus. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered an in-depth review of proposals regarding possible nuclear test preparations in his country. This decision follows recent statements by US President Donald Trump, who suggested that the United States may resume nuclear testing. Putin has also stressed that Russia has always adhered to comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, but has made it clear that if the US or any nuclear power moves forward with tests, Russia would also respond accordingly. Listen in to what he stated.
Неукоснительно придерживалась и придерживается обязательств по договору о всеобъемлющем запрещении ядерных испытаний и планов отойти от этих обязательств у нас нет. Вместе с тем, действительно, еще в послании Федеральному собранию в 2023 году мною было сказано, что в случае, если Соединенные Штаты либо другие государства, участники соответствующего договора, проведут такие испытания, то и Россия тоже должна будет соответствующим образом предпринять адекватные ответные действия. Министерство иностранных дел, Министерству обороны Российской Федерации, специальным службам и гражданским ведомствам, соответствующим гражданским ведомствам, сделать все для того, чтобы собрать дополнительную информацию по этому вопросу, провести ее анализ на площадке Совета Безопасности и внести согласованные предложения о возможном начале работ по подготовке испытаний ядерного оружия.
Additionally, Russia's Defense Minister Andrei Belousov has commented, expressing concerns over US actions. He's further stated that if the US abandons the nuclear test moratorium, it could undermine global strategic stability. Belousov has also noted buildup of strategic weapons by the United States and its deployment of new nuclear capabilities, stating that these actions demonstrate Washington's active expansion of strategic offensive weapons. With us on the broadcast is Professor Andrew Latham. He's a professor of international relations, joining us from Minneapolis. Thank you so much for once again taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Interestingly, Donald Trump had put out a very lengthy message on Truth Social. He'd followed it up with repeated assertions that the United States is going to test nuclear weapons after a 33-year pause. The US, of course, has not ratified the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, but so far we've seen efforts, international efforts, whether it's the United States, Russia or China, to not conduct these tests. The only known test this century was done by North Korea. But it's also interesting because we've seen the Russians test the Burevestnik delivery system, the missile itself, not the nuclear bomb, the warhead. In light of this, what do you make of Putin's statements, and do you think what Donald Trump had earlier stated was simply posturing, or does he intend to follow up on that?
It was neither posturing nor is he going to follow up on it. It's a gigantic mistake. He didn't realize that there's a difference between the Skyfall and Poseidon, which have nuclear motors, not nuclear warheads,
yes, and
something with a nuclear warhead. So he thought because they'd been testing these weapon systems, they were testing nuclear weapons. Well, that's wrong. The moratorium that has been in place since the early 1990s, and a lot of countries haven't ratified or signed it, it's not really in effect, but there is a convention, there's a moratorium. Nobody, the Russians, I think, Soviet Union tested in 1990 and the United States in 1992. The fact of the matter is that this moratorium is in place because nobody needs to actually detonate nuclear warheads in order to test them. The simulation technology is more than good enough, and it would be such a hassle, such a difficult thing to do to actually test one of these underground or under the sea, or God forbid in the atmosphere. It's just not worth it. So what we see now, though, on the part of the Russians is posturing, typical deterrence kind of thing. If you do this, you Americans do this, then we will respond in kind. And that is intended to generate the fear of a spiral, an upward spiral, a ratcheting up of tensions. But the fact of the matter is neither the Russians nor the Americans nor anybody else outside of the North Koreans have any interest in testing these weapons at all.
Indeed, you stated that there are fears of this spiraling out of control. Hypothetically speaking, could this then sort of revive the nuclear arms race? There have been efforts in this century, particularly for denuclearization and ensuring that nuclear proliferation does not take place any further, because we do know that there are about 5,000 warheads with the Americans, the Russians, or Chinese have short of 1,000. Of course, they're trying to build up their arsenal now as well.
Yes, well, there are two kinds of proliferation. One is horizontal, and that's spread to countries, spreading the nuclear technology to countries that don't have it. And then there's vertical, which is more and more Russian or American or British or Chinese nuclear weapons. Since the end of the Cold War, there's been a dialing down of that kind of tendency towards vertical proliferation, more and more weapons. There have been fewer and fewer weapon systems. Enough that there's still mutually assured destruction, which is the cornerstone of deterrence, mutual and strategic stability. Neither side can launch an attack on the other without inviting a terrible retaliation. I mean, basically the human race ends. And that can be achieved with 1,500 or 1,000 warheads. You don't need 10,000 or 20,000. And so it made sense for Russia and the United States. The Brits and the French, of course, never had more than a handful. And China is ratcheting up. It had 20 and then it had 200, and now it's looking at maybe 2,000. It wants to play in the big leagues, I guess, as it were. It also wants that second strike capability. I don't think anything's going to change that. Anything that Donald Trump is uttering is going to change that. All of these countries are modernizing because, like your car, these things get old and nobody can be sure that they'll work. So there's a modernization effort afoot in the US and in Russia, but not a desire to somehow achieve numerical superiority, which is meaningless beyond a certain number. So I think what we're at is, despite the rhetoric, we're at a point of strategic stability at the moment, and that's not likely to change.
All right, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other crucial developments. We're learning that China's foreign minister recently